My wife put me on speaker and said, "It's over," to make her friends laugh. I just replied, "Okay, I understand," and hung up. The next morning, her mother called her, screaming hysterically, "The house? Dear God, what did you just let him do to the house?" I was reviewing invoices at 9:47 p.m. when the phone lit up. My wife, Vanessa. I answered out of habit, still half focused on a spreadsheet, tracking our quarterly expenses. Numbers she never once asked about because, as she told me multiple times, finances are just so boring. Mark, the irony wasn't lost on me. Those boring finances paid for her weekly manicures at that upscale salon downtown, the one that charged $60 just to file her nails. They paid for her ever-expanding collection of streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, that niche documentary platform she watched exactly twice. They covered her weekend flights to Palm Springs when she needed to decompress with friends, staying at boutique hotels that cost more per night than most people's monthly car payments. But the moment I heard laughter in the background, cheap wine being poured, the clink of glasses touching, that hollow echo that only comes from restaurant acoustics, I knew something was off. My finger hovered over the spreadsheet, cursor blinking on a cell I'd been about to update. Then her voice came through, loud, exaggerated, dripping with that fake sympathy she used when she wanted to sound mature, but came off as condescending. "Mark, it's over. Don't text, don't call, just move on, okay?" Her friends howled. Someone, I think it was her friend Gabriel, the one who sold leggings through social media, yelled loud enough for me to hear clearly. "Oh my God, he actually picked up." Another voice slurred and delighted. "This is iconic." I could picture the scene perfectly. Vanessa at the head of the table, phone held up like a trophy, face flushed from her third glass of rosé. Her friends leaning in, hands covering their mouths, eyes wide with the kind of anticipation you see at a reality TV finale. This was entertainment. I was entertainment. I stared at my computer screen for exactly 3 seconds. The numbers blurred slightly. My jaw tightened, then relaxed. Then I said very calmly, "Okay, I understand," and hung up. 13 seconds total. That's how long it took her to end a 7-year marriage. Or at least that's how long she thought it took. I set my phone face down on the desk. The office was quiet, except for the hum of my laptop and the distant sound of our neighbor's dog barking. I took a breath, slow and measured, then reached for my mouse. No yelling, no questions, no begging or demanding explanations, just silence. Then I opened a folder on my desktop labeled Exit V11. Months of quiet preparation set inside. Spreadsheets, scanned documents, legal forms with stamps and signatures, authorization letters, account statements, property deeds, a meticulously organized timeline that read like a disaster preparedness manual, because that's exactly what it was. You see, I learned early in our relationship that Vanessa loved chaos and hated paperwork. The chaos fed her. It gave her stories to tell, drama to post about, reasons to call her mother and sigh heavily about how complicated everything was. But paperwork, documentation, responsibility, those things bored her to tears. So while she collected Instagram followers and filmed self-care haul videos where she unwrapped packages she'd bought with our joint credit, which wasn't actually joint, but I'll get to that, I collected signatures, notarizations, and digital authorizations. Every document had a date, every account had a clause, every asset, the house on Willow Lane with its white columns and professional landscaping, the BMW she drove like it was hers, even her joint business credit card she used for brand collaborations was in my name, legally, irrevocably, documented in triplicate. Her prank wasn't an insult, it was an opportunity. It was the trigger I'd been waiting for, the unmistakable signal that she'd crossed from careless into cruel, and that I no longer owed her the courtesy of a warning. The thing about Vanessa was that she'd always been performative. Even in the beginning, when we first started dating, there was this theatrical quality to everything she did. Our first date had been at a rooftop bar downtown, and she'd spent half the evening positioning her drink for the perfect photo, adjusting the angle 3, 4, 5 times until the sun hit the glass just right. I'd found it charming back then, endearing even. She was vibrant and alive in a way I wasn't, and I thought maybe her light would balance out my darkness. What I didn't realize was that everything with Vanessa was a transaction. Every moment had to have an audience. Every experience had to be documented and validated by strangers online. When she told me she loved me for the first time, 6 months into our relationship on a beach in Santa Monica, she'd made me wait while she set up her phone on a timer to capture the moment. The I love you wasn't just for me, it was content. I should have seen the warning signs, but I was lonely and she was beautiful, and I convinced myself that her need for validation was harmless. Just a generational thing, I told myself. Everyone her age lives on their phones. But it wasn't harmless. It was corrosive. Because when everything is content, nothing is sacred. Our engagement wasn't a private moment between two people. It was a 3-minute Instagram story with romantic music and strategic camera angles. Our wedding wasn't a celebration of commitment. It was a branded event with a custom hashtag and a photographer who cost more than my first car. And our marriage was a 7-year performance where I played the supporting role to her main character. And I was too busy keeping the show running to realize I'd never actually been her partner. I'd been her producer. At 10:05 p.m., I logged into our banking portal and revoked her card access with 3 clicks. Her business card, the one she used for essential expenses like designer coffee and influencer conferences, gone, declined, effective immediately. At 10:20 p.m., I paused all shared subscriptions she'd ever claimed as for work. Netflix, gone. Canva Pro, where she designed her social media graphics, suspended. Her monthly beauty box, the one that cost $47 and arrived like clockwork, even though she never opened half the products, canceled. Even her meditation app, which she'd used 3 times in 6 months, was cut off. I went through the list methodically. The meal delivery service she'd signed up for and forgotten about, canceled. The premium Spotify account she needed for content creation, downgraded. The cloud storage where she kept thousands of photos of herself, access revoked. The wine club membership that sent her 2 bottles every month, terminated. Each click felt like removing a thread from a tapestry, and with each thread removed, the picture became clearer. She'd been living a life that never actually was hers. It was borrowed, rented, built on my credit, and sustained by my silence. At 10:33 p.m., I called the locksmith I'd vetted 2 months earlier. "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp," I said. "I'll text you the address." He didn't ask questions. I'd already prepaid. We discussed the job in detail weeks ago. New deadbolts, new garage code, new smart lock system. Everything would be changed, and only I would have the new access codes. Then I made tea. Chamomile, from the loose leaf tin Vanessa bought once, used twice and forgot about. I poured it into a plain ceramic mug, sat back down at my desk, and reviewed the next phase of my plan. No shaking hands, no angry playlist, no throwing things or punching walls or any of the dramatic reactions she would have posted about if the roles were reversed. Just methodical, surgical silence. Vanessa thought control meant volume. She thought power came from who could yell loudest, who could cry hardest, who could gather the most witnesses to their pain. She never understood that true control sounds like nothing at all. It's the quiet click of a door locking, the soft buzz of an email being sent, the calm, steady rhythm of someone who's been prepared for months and is now simply executing a plan. I opened my email and reviewed the draft messages I'd prepared. One to the property management company for the downtown apartment, terminating her access effective immediately. One to the car dealership, informing them I'd be returning the BMW at the end of the month. One to my insurance broker, removing Vanessa as a beneficiary and dependent. I'd written these emails months ago, saving them as drafts, updating them periodically as circumstances changed. All they needed now was a send date. I scheduled them all for 6 a.m. the next morning, early enough that they'd be processed before Vanessa woke, late enough that I'd be long gone before anyone tried to reach me. The next step was my lawyer. I'd already briefed Daniel Chen on the possibility of this scenario. We'd had several conversations over the past year, always framed as hypothetical. If a marriage were to end, I'd say, what would the process look like? Daniel was good at his job. He never asked unnecessary questions, just provided clear, actionable information. Now I sent him a single text, green light, proceed with phase 2. His response came back within minutes. Understood. Paperwork will be ready by 11 a.m. tomorrow. Phase 2 was the trust transfer. The house on Willow Lane, along with several other assets, would be transferred into an irrevocable trust, the August Foundation. Once that transfer was complete, there would be no reversing it. The property would belong to the foundation, and Vanessa would have zero legal claim to it. I'd established the August Foundation 2 years ago, but I'd been planning for something like it much longer. The foundation's mission was simple: provide support and transitional housing
screaming
for
through
single
the phone,
fathers.
loud enough to be audible from the driveway. The house? Dear God, Vanessa, what did you just let him do to the house? Vanessa, standing in the driveway of that house, staring at the new lock she couldn't open, probably went pale. What are you talking about? He gave it away. It's all over the news. He donated the entire property to some foundation. That's not possible. He can't just... He can, and he did. Your name was never on the deed, Vanessa. You don't have a claim. You don't have standing. You don't have anything. I imagined Vanessa's knees buckled. I imagined she sat down right there on the front steps, the same steps where she'd filmed a dozen Instagram stories about home life and gratitude. "But I live here," she whispered. "No," Patricia said, voice hard. "You lived there. Past tense." Mrs. Kowalski told me that Vanessa sat on those steps for almost 2 hours, staring at her phone, occasionally crying, sometimes laughing in a way that sounded slightly unhinged. At one point, she tried to open the garage door using the remote in her car. It didn't work. I'd had the codes changed, along with everything else. Eventually, she got in her car and drove away. Mrs. Kowalski never saw her at the house again. By then, I was gone. My new place didn't have marble countertops or imported Italian tiles, no walk-in closets, no infinity pool, just a small 2-bedroom apartment with a balcony that overlooked a park. The day after the press release went live, I drove to the animal shelter and adopted a dog, a 3-year-old mixed breed named Chester, who'd been overlooked for months because he wasn't a puppy, wasn't a purebred, wasn't Instagram-worthy. He cost me $80, best money I ever spent. We sat on my porch, my plain, unremarkable porch, and I scratched behind his ears while he leaned against my leg, completely content. No drama, no performance, no audience, just peace. Vanessa didn't believe it at first, even standing in front of the house with new locks glinting in the morning sun, even with her mother's frantic voice still echoing in her ears. Some part of her brain refused to accept that this was real. Mark was Mark, boring, predictable. Mark, the man who color-coded his file folders and set reminders for oil changes. The man who asked if she needed anything from the grocery store and never complained when she spent $200 on a purse. Mark didn't do things like this. Mark didn't have it in him. She tried her key one more time, jamming it into the lock with enough force to scratch the brass. It didn't turn. Of course it didn't turn. The lock was new. The locksmith had probably finished his work hours ago, while she was still sleeping off her performance. "This is insane," she muttered, pulling out her phone. Her hands were shaking now, not from cold, but from something else, something that felt uncomfortably like fear. She called me straight to voicemail. She called again, same result. She tried texting. "Mark, seriously, what is this? Call me back." The message showed as delivered, but not read. I'd turned off read receipts months ago, another small preparation she'd never noticed. Then her phone started buzzing with notifications. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. People were tagging her, lots of people. She opened Instagram first. There it was, pinned at the top of her feed, the article from the Tribune, shared by someone she went to college with, then someone from her yoga class, then one of the local mom bloggers she followed. The same photo of the house she'd posted 100 times, but now the caption wasn't about her morning routine or her gratitude practice. It was about charitable giving and single fathers and foundations she'd never heard of. And there, in the comments, people were connecting the dots. Wait, isn't this the girl who was posting about choosing herself last night? She broke up with him and he donated the house? Imagine fumbling this badly. Vanessa sat down on the front steps, my front steps, legally speaking, and tried to think. Her head still hurt from the wine. Her mouth tasted like regret and bad decisions. But underneath the hangover, a new realization was crystallizing. She'd miscalculated. She thought the phone call would be like all the other times she'd pushed me. The time she accidentally told her friends I was boring in bed. I'd overheard from the next room and said nothing. The time she used our joint credit card to buy a $3,000 handbag for work, and I'd simply adjusted our budget to accommodate it. The time she'd posted a photo with the caption, "When your partner doesn't understand your dreams," after I questioned whether her third influencer conference of the year was really necessary. Every time I'd absorbed it, adjusted, accommodated. She thought I was weak. She thought my silence meant acceptance. She never understood that I was documenting everything, building a case, waiting for the moment she'd go too far, when she'd give me the legal and moral justification to do what I'd been preparing to do for nearly a year. That moment had come, and I was ready. By 10 a.m., Vanessa's phone was ringing constantly. First, it was Gabriel. "Babe, I just saw something online. Did Mark donate your house?" Then Sophia. Is this real? There's an article about some foundation, and it shows your address." Then Alexis. "V, what the hell is happening?" Vanessa didn't answer any of them. Instead, she opened her social media and watched her carefully constructed world begin to collapse in real time. The article had been shared 47 times already. Her neighbors had seen it, her old coworkers, people from high school she hadn't spoken to in a decade. The comments were brutal. "Imagine getting dumped so hard your ex donates the whole house. She's been posting about that house for years. I can't believe it was never hers. This is what happens when you treat people like props, play stupid games, win stupid prizes." Someone had even dug up her post from the night before, the one with the wine glasses, and screenshotted it next to the headline about the donation. The juxtaposition was damning, her celebrating, while I was already executing my exit. One comment in particular caught her eye. Notice how he didn't sell it, didn't trade it, gave it away to help people. Meanwhile, she's out here treating their relationship like a joke. Who's laughing now? 237 likes on that comment. Vanessa's carefully curated image was fracturing in real time. She was supposed to be the protagonist of this story, the woman who left because she deserved better, the brave soul choosing herself. Instead, she was becoming the villain, the ungrateful wife who mocked her husband and lost everything. Her follower count started dropping slowly. At first, 5 followers, 10, 20, then faster. She watched the number tick down like a countdown clock. Every lost follower felt like a tiny rejection, a small vote of no confidence. By noon, she'd lost over 300 followers. People were unfollowing her in real time, and worse, they were commenting on her old posts. Under a photo of her in the kitchen making smoothies. "That's not even your kitchen, lol." Under a selfie captioned, "Home is where the heart is." Well, not anymore. Under a post about relationship goals, "This aged like milk." At 11:30 a.m., Vanessa received a text from a number she didn't recognize. "This is Daniel Chen, Mark's attorney. We need to speak regarding the property at 847 Willow Lane and your personal belongings. Please call this number at your earliest convenience." Her stomach dropped. Attorney. Of course Mark had an attorney. Of course this was all planned. Of course every single thing she assumed about her life was wrong. She called the number with trembling fingers. Daniel answered on the second ring. "Miss Reed, thank you for calling." "What's happening? Why can't I get into my house?" "The property at 847 Willow Lane is no longer under Mr. Ellis's ownership. As of yesterday morning, it was transferred to the August Foundation, a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization." "But I live here." "According to our records, you are not listed on the property deed, the mortgage, or any rental agreement. You are not legally a tenant." Vanessa felt like the ground was tilting, the world was spinning, and she was trying to hold on to something solid, but everything was slipping through her fingers. "That's insane! We're married! It's our house!" "California is a community property state," Daniel acknowledged, his tone still infuriatingly calm and measured. "However, the property was purchased prior to your marriage, using funds from Mr. Ellis's separate assets. You signed a prenuptial agreement, waiving claims to any property acquired before the marriage." "I never signed a prenup." There was a pause, a significant pause, the kind of pause that communicates worlds of information in its silence. "Miss Reed, I have your signature on file, notarized and dated March 15th, 2018. Vanessa's mind raced back. March 2018. They'd gotten married in April, just a few weeks before the wedding. She remembered Mark asking her to sign some papers. They'd been at dinner, that nice Italian place she liked, and he'd pulled out a folder between the appetizer and the main course. "Just standard stuff," he'd said. "Marriage license paperwork, insurance beneficiaries, banking stuff. The lawyer said we should get it done before the wedding so there's no last-minute scrambling." She'd been busy planning the wedding, picking out flowers and arguing with the caterer about vegan options and obsessing over whether the bridesmaids' dresses were the right shade of blush.